Safety first. Please start the podcast before driving and do not interact with your phone while operating your vehicle.
Welcome to Impactful Dialogues, an Ecolab podcast that elevates inclusion, mindfulness, purpose, awareness, collaboration, and trust through executive conversations. I'm your host, Senior Vice President of Global Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Dexter Davis. Welcome to the 7th episode of Impactful Dialogues. Today, we'll be speaking with Laurie Marsh to discuss her career journey, her passion for employee resource groups, and their role in fostering business growth. Laurie, thank you so much for joining me in what I believe will be a fun conversation. For those of you who don't know, Laurie serves as Ecolab's Chief Human Resources Officer. Laurie, as we recently concluded the ERG Summit with our partnership with USC Center for Effective Organizations, it gives me time to think about the journey and the path we had here at Ecolab.
Yes.
And my question is, could you share how you see employee resource groups contributing to the development of diverse and inclusive networks within the organization? And what value do you believe these networks bring to Ecolab's overall business strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe if I could just step back a little and kind of go big to little. If I think about how we've sort of architected this over an arc of about 10 years, I earnestly believe that cultures change in decades, decade at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And my background's in architecture, so I'm going to just use a metaphor here for a minute. I think of the step change needed to make a bit like building a blueprint. And from a blueprint, then you can build a foundation, then you can put up the walls, eventually drywall, and eventually you decorate your dwelling. And similarly, if I step back a decade ago, ERGs were largely socially and philanthropically focused, and there is nothing wrong with that at all. But they were definitely disconnected from business objectives. And so as we laid out a much broader DEI strategy and a much broader culture change strategy, we knew that our ERGs could serve as a quintessential brand ambassador for the company. And so how did we create that framework and purpose that aligned to our business objectives? Mm-hmm. And we have the good fortune of having such a purpose and mission-driven organization. It was relatively easy to do. Mm-hmm. And that started with, a very small internal ERG summit where we laid out goals and objectives and had deliberate linkage to business goals. And one of the rally points for sure was around hiring. And so getting them involved in ERG fairs and helping drive that diverse pipeline was difference making. And I look at the most recent ERG summit as a complete extension of that. So not only was it initially using the ERGs and brand to attract talent, but now I think we've become an industry influencer. Mm-hmm. And so I think about the fact that we were invited by USC to co-sponsor this. That's one sort of testament to our ability to influence the industry. And the fact that we responsibly want to take our knowledge and information on our journey and share it with other companies who are like-minded so that we can kind of collectively raise everybody up, I think is really great.
That is awesome. And I would 100% agree, Laurie. And I think part of what makes our ERGs special and important, and critical to any DEI strategy, is the role of an executive sponsor. And you've been the role of executive sponsor for how many years at Pride? It seems like since
it was more than a decade. I passed the mantle, but I maybe I will be emeritus Pride executive sponsor.
Yes, and I know Rich just we spoke last time with Rich and talking about the importance of executive sponsor too. But when you think about that and you think about the progress you've seen in ERGs, what have you seen from the development of the ERG co-leads over the years? You mentioned that philanthropic focus now to more doing things with more of that business mindset. And I've seen it just in a short period of time being back here this time, the progress they're making and how they're thinking broader. How do you, as an executive sponsor, which I think is important, and especially our listeners out there to understand, how does the executive sponsor's role really help?
It helps in many ways, but I'll harken back to this sort of blueprint. What we really had to do is craft a business case internally that could not just be HR led. It had to be leader led, commercially led. And our leaders really needed to understand the value prop and the why of diverse teams. ERGs are simply a way for diverse folks to connect, and it's another point of connection above and beyond your business team or functional team, but it's another way to create those touch points. And so I find it no coincidence that last year, which was one of the best years ever of Ecolab's performance, was also our most diverse in terms of team.
Absolutely.
And so the role of the executive sponsor has pivoted from one of, I will call it, social support and encouragement to now making sure that the leadership teams on those ERGs are experiencing a highly curated career experience. These are important development assignments that are valued across the organization. And in turn, an executive sponsor's role is to test, challenge, help guide the strategy, help provoke advancement, versus what I would say was more of a supporting cast member. And that goes back to this sort of 10-year blueprint. We've been intentionally sort of laying the foundation, skilling people up, moving people forward. And now I think we're in a place where you've seen a complete pivot and the advancement of the ERGs and the value it places, so much so that we've seen just exponential growth internationally. And I think it's just been a complete, momentum builder all across the globe here.
Absolutely. And, as you say about the intentionality, it makes me think about when I first was here. So I was at Ecolab 10 years ago, about that same time frame. Good experience, great people, made great connections like yourself, which were really...
Yeah, I was coming back around for you. You were not going to leave.
Yeah. And I think back to that time period, and I think about all the good intentions we had about DEI. I thought we're a company with good intentions about DEI. And then coming back, seeing us move from that good intentions to being intentional, I think it's made all the difference here. Yeah. And I think it's made all the difference, not just from the having higher representation, but the culture. Yeah. And I think us embracing that and understanding the importance of culture and how important it is to be intentional, I think has really drive the progress we made. Speak to a little bit what that's been like being a journey. It's easier for me because I was left and came back to see it. What's it like going through that as you're experiencing it? And what do you do to make sure you recognize that progress? And how optimistic, I think you're as optimistic as me, is how much we can improve even from where we're at today for 5 to 10 years now.
Well, I'll tell you, as I said, I was coming back around for you, my friend.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I'm glad I did too. Yes, it's been great. And it is great. I think when you shared that after you'd been here for whatever, a month, I was like, oh, that's such a good reminder because, you're in the mix every day and you're making progress and you can probably point to like mathematical facts, right? That you did this and here's the progress. It's such a battle of inches every day. And as I said, cultures change in a decade. And so there's times where you don't even necessarily see the progress. And so your observations for me were such a great reminder to pause and celebrate and acknowledge the progress. And as importantly, acknowledge the team and the teamwork necessary to build that momentum. And, yourself, your team doing such a great job continuing to elevate our story and merchandise it. And I really think now, as I said earlier, I step back and go, wow, I don't know when, where, how exactly we became industry influencers, but we're there now. We're being invited to talk about our practices. And so that change is rooted in a blueprint and a strategy that you have to be patient enough and leaders have to be invested enough in, underpinned by the actual fact that diverse teams are winning teams and fuel performance at an organization. And you can see the arc of performance changing just as you've seen the arc of diversity changing here at the company. And for me, that's what motivates us. And it's, again, just a great reminder to celebrate those incremental touch points along the way. And then to your last remark, there's still work to do. Back to my house metaphor, drywall's up, carpet's probably down. I think it's time to decorate. So we've got a little bit more to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a little bit more to do. And I think that why I'm optimistic about the work we do, because the voice can't just be coming from HR and our DEI leaders. And I think the engagement with our executive DEI council, which you've been a part of, and how that's evolving, where we have a lot of participation, not only from our DEI team, but our executive committee members who are all now sponsors within our ERGs, to the point you made about the importance of that. But what else has changed, and I think is important, as I hear more ownership from business leader, a commercial business leader, understanding that this is a key part that drives what they do, their job, and drives the culture, and which will drive business results. What do you think, and how healthy it is as we kind of move there? The carpet's getting down. We're looking at furniture. We're trying to build it up right now.
Right.
So what do we need to continue doing? How important is it for us to not? I mean, we just talked about celebrating that piece, but understanding that, hey, for us to continue to progress, we also got to have honest, direct conversations of where we need to be.
Yeah.
And that's what I've really appreciated. And that's another reason why I'm engaged. Why is that so important?
Well, I'll start with, it's the death of a company to get too wound around your own ego.
Yes.
And so like humility and confronting reality is the foundation, in my belief, of a successful organization. And I've seen us get better at that.
Yeah.
Is there room for improvement? For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you recently I was in a meeting with leaders and there was a conversation around some talent and long way around the block. There was a little bit of, gosh, are they engaged? Are they present? Are they, this, that, or the other? And it was a healthy conversation. It allowed the door to be open to a broader conversation around mental health.
Yes.
In this particular example, myself and a couple others were saying, well, what about, there must be something else going on because these facts don't line up with what we know about this particular individual. And I got done and somebody texted me and said, it's a proud day for me to be at Ecolab. And I thought, it was another one of those moments that caused me to step back and go, that's a sign of progress. Because I will say, even myself in this role 3, 4, 5 years ago, that would have been a conversation that would have been uncomfortable for me to engage in. And it would have been equally uncomfortable for that room to even know what to do with that. And I think, that maybe that's a one specific example, but there are hundreds of them around the organization. Or, in the first person, people saying, that felt a little aggressive, or, talk about a microaggression, the fact that people know what that is. Those are like little things, but they are huge things. But I look at those conversations as visible signs of progress. And these are conversations that are happening whether I'm in the room or not, which is also a signal that this is leader-led and it's beginning to continue to make us better and fuel our performance. So
true. And I think it's important you practice it as well. So we recently did inclusive workshops and we had people across the globe talk about these practice things about bias and microaggressions. And I think that makes it easier for people to feel comfortable and talk about, like you said. And I think organization that gives that permission to have those conversations is really core to building up that psychological trust that we talked about with Jeff. And that kind of is a theme that kind of goes throughout there. And I think that theme is even broader when we think of our approach of how we look at our people. And I think you've used the phrase, and we've talked about the phrase, a culture of care. Talk a little about that and how that really helps drive us as an organization.
You just start with, we're all humans on this planet and we're all trying to, I think my general belief is humans are wired for goodness. And so you just have to find a way to connect. And this isn't just a transactional role that you're in. You have to find a way to uniquely connect with each person, and that requires an investment. And I think if we all just take a little bit more time to make a connection, whatever that might mean to you, collectively, this company will continue to be fueled by the performance. I look every day, you've seen this when I talk to the HR leaders, I think it's completely magic and mystifying that people choose to take discretionary effort, time that they could spend 1,000 ways, and they choose to redirect that to this wonderful company. They take that extra time and energy to show up at a Pride fair or go to a career event or all the things above and beyond their day job. And I look at that and I respect it, I appreciate it, but I think it's also a testament to a growing inclusive team who is willing to embrace all kinds of different perspectives, all kinds of points of view, and continue to do that in the service of the mission and purpose and growth of the organization.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So as you reflect back of your 33 glorious years at Ecolab, can you think a little bit about like one thing professionally and personally that has been impactful for you throughout this career at Ecolab?
One thing.
Yeah.
Professionally, I love the fact that the core of our sustainability promise is deeply rooted in our history. And so I can remember the day I walked up to Naperville into my first interview, and I remember looking up, and on the lights in the parking lot, there were banners saying winner of the first presidential green chemistry award. Mm. And I remember thinking, now this is before the internet, see 33 years. I'm like, I'm going to have to ask about this because the notion of green and chemistry did not go together. And I learned what was now known as 3D TRASAR and all of the capability there. And I remember thinking, I think this is very cool. I love the fact that this company is positioned to make a difference in the world. And so for me, that's like the most heartening part of this from a business perspective. Personally, I think each one of us find those moments that matter. You know, if you're lucky, you have 3, 4, 5 of them. And I've had those touch points where when I needed it, people reached out to me and supported me uniquely as an individual. And I see those stories pervasively across the organization, whether it's through Ida Koran and how we reach out and support each other, whether it's a national or natural disaster, and you get a knock at the door and there are 5 human beings who you've never met before there to help you clean up. And the one thing that binds all of us is the company brand and the promise. So that's the personal part of it, the heart part of the organization. I find it remarkably familial at 48,000 strong. And it's something that I try to convey when we're recruiting people because it's almost defies logic at our size and scale. Yeah. So those are probably my 2 whys.
Oh, love it. And it speaks to how the professional and the personal matters. And that's really how you bring your whole self into the organization and how you really demonstrate inclusive leadership, which I think, Laurie, you do a great job. And I'm not just saying that because you're my boss. And I thought that even when I wasn't there. And I think that's the kind of thing that we're really talking about more and how important that is. And we see it across the organization. Yeah. And as we continue to build that inclusive culture, that's going to be the norm. Yeah. And I think we would agree that we see that becoming more and more what it is.
Well, you thank you for saying that. And I think about how my team has helped me become a better leader. And you can kind of hear it in my wavering voice at the moment. This place hits me in my heart. But what you all have taught me is how to authentically demonstrate that and that it's okay. I like these moments I used to like run from because I'm like, no, I have to have like, be from Central Casting and have the, the corporate veneer and all the things, right? And authentic leadership is unique to each person. And I think that's the biggest unlock when it comes to tapping into your teams and tapping into winning teams. And so I thank my entire global HR team for that gift because, the first time I sort of teared up at a town hall, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. And they're like, that was awesome. And I'm like, I want to go like run to the bathroom right now. And they made it okay and actually helped me learn that being authentic actually was a big unlock in terms of team connection. So I'd offer that at the end that I think our ERGs also allow that authentic place for people to be and to uniquely show their personal gifts to others. And I think that also fuels our performance.
Absolutely. But I'm gonna not end on that because I do think for teams to do that, leaders have to set up that environment for people in authenticity. And that starts with really taking the time to get to know your team.
100%.
And you mentioned yourself, knowing yourself, that creates that environment of trust. And that's what creates an environment where people can come together and do great things. And Absolutely. I think that's how we're going to continue to unlock the great talent we have at Ecolab. And I thank you for all you do, Laurie, to really give that example of what an authentic leader looks like. And that gives us all to know that we can have different styles, to your point, you're saying different styles, different approaches, but being you and being authentic and having an environment where that can shine is what makes Ecolab great and what's going to make us even greater in the future.
Amen.
All right.
Love it.
Thank you, Laurie. And thanks to everyone for listening. Our next conversation will feature Calvin Emanuel, Vice President and General Manager of Ecolab's Sustainable Growth Solutions. We will focus on how he discovered his purpose, why Ecolab is a perfect match for fulfilling that purpose, and why driving sustainable growth is not just a preference, but a necessity.